that are aligned to our strategy, meaningful to us, and importantly, meaningful to our employees. Because every single thing we do has a full 360 approach. Every program we invest in, every proof of concept that we deploy across communities, it's got to have a social media and traditional media component to amplify it. We've got to get our employees involved. We've got to get our customers and our partners involved. We have to get communities involved. And we have to really tackle it from a really broad perspective. So with all of that in mind, what do? Well, we don't have a whole ton of people, and we sure don't have a whole lot of money, but we do have fantastic equipment and technology solutions. And so we set about trying to figure out what's meaningful for us in this country, what's really relevant, and where could our technologies be put to the most powerful and impactful use. Something that would be relevant for our governments, for our population as a whole, for our businesses, for all of our constituents. So we did a couple of years of homework. And many of you will not know that our Aboriginal communities in Canada are our most underserved and our most maligned. And there are some perfectly dreadful statistics that talk to the quality of life that they're struggling to manage and to sustain in some very, very remote communities. But things like highest suicide rate in the world, not just in Canada, where it's 11 times higher than our national average, but in the world. Dropout rates for grade 6 students, that's 12-year-old kids, of 75%. I mean, the statistics go on and on and on. Save it to say, and the challenges are unique to us, and I'm not going to go on and on about it, but we've taken a population that traditionally lived on the land, and we have tried they have been forced in a lot of cases to adapt into ways of life in communities that are very foreign to their traditions and very foreign to their expectations, and there's been some real issues there. So, knowing all of that, knowing the systemic challenges, what could we do? Well, we know we've got video technology, we know we have telepresence capability. How can we bring these video experiences into these underserved communities and help transform them and help them improve their overall state in terms of education and healthcare? So we decided to focus in 3 core areas. Number 1 is workforce development. There are a lot of mining and exploration companies, natural resource companies that are looking to develop the business opportunities in the Arctic and in the Ring of Fire, as we call our area in Northern Ontario and in the Northwest Territories. Number 2 is healthcare. And if you go up to the Arctic Circle, which Jeff and I have, they will tell you that their healthcare priorities in order are, number 1, mental health. They have huge suicide rates and issues of mental health and depression. Number 2 is tuberculosis, and number 3 is sexually transmitted diseases. So there's a great need for care. It's very difficult to get doctors up there, 14 doctors to serve 30,000 people, enough said. Our third area of focus is education and trying to make that classroom experience really compelling for those kids so we don't have dropout rates of 75%. So I'm going to talk to 2 programs that we're targeting specifically in the healthcare and workforce development space, and I'm going to turn over to Jeff to talk about the education component. But one of the things that is very powerfully needed is more psychiatric support in our remote communities. Lots and lots of countries have challenges of time and distance. We have the challenge of time and distance, but we also have the challenge of very inhospitable living conditions. Minus 50 below is not exactly fun. And so video becomes even more important in terms of its ability to scale resources. Right now, if you're a 15-year-old and you're living in Iqaluit and you're having severe mental health challenges, you've got to wait 2 years to see a psychiatrist. Not good enough. So we reached out to the Canadian Centre for Addiction, Canadian Centre for Addiction and Mental Health, CAMH, very well-respected organization in Canada, and said, so guys, what can we do here to extend your psychiatry services into remote communities? We are now working with CAMH on a program in collaboration with an organization called Sioux Lookout. And we're in the very formative stages of it, but so far so good. Sioux Lookout is a major healthcare center positioned in Ontario's north. And right now they've got 10 beds for addiction counseling and addiction recovery. They've got about 25,000 users and addicts. So, clearly lots of room for improvement. Once they put the addicts through these treatment courses, which are about 6 weeks long, they move back into the communities and they typically start using again within about 2 weeks. So they not only need telepsychiatry capability in the center itself, but we need them in the remote communities for follow-up. So we're going to start small. We're going to look at putting in about 4 or 5 units that are going to connect psychiatrists and psychologists at one end, based in Toronto, to the folks based in Sioux Lookout. And we're going to see how it goes. It's very, very important that we wrap really solid metrics around it, that we really look at outcomes and we really determine whether or not this is feasible and effective. So all of that is being put in place now, and we're looking forward to hopefully launching this in the fall. We are also working with a large Canadian bank, hopefully, as of this morning, and who's very eager in supporting this program. And hopefully the Hospital for Sick Children in Toronto to do something similar in northern communities with a focus on younger children. So that is still being scoped. It's still in its very formative stages, but we're very excited about the potential that psychiatry can bring, because we do think it can be transformative in those communities. In terms of workforce development, there is a large business opportunity, again, for all the natural resource and mining companies that are operating in Canada's north. And there are issues about how to adequately train and support and mentor the folks that are going to be the workforce. And so we are going to, again, in formative discussions, partner with a large Canadian natural resource company, whose name I can't share until we officially launch. But discussions are going very, very well so far. And we are going to look at a program that will bring basic high school learning, really, to fill a gap. Because what they'll tell you is, you know, if we get somebody, a 23-year-old who's got a grade 6 education, there is some training that we can do. If we get a 23-year-old with a grade 2 education, there's a big gap we've got to fill in terms of reading and comprehension and teachability, to be honest. So we're going to look at a variety of programming, again, providing our expertise and our technology and our deployment capacity and their content and management and evaluation of the program. So we're really, really proud of this work, because if there is one area in Canada where we can really move the dial, I think it is these communities. These are not easy projects to take on. We've talked to our counterparts at Cisco in Australia. They're dealing with some similar issues and have actually a similar program in place by just focusing on one school. And as Jeff and I learned when we were in Iqaluit 2 weeks ago when it was 5 below zero, and Jeff went out at midnight throughout the stroll, which I still kind of don't get, but anyhow. You really do need to make connections with the people on the ground to really allow for success. You really need to build ecosystems of very committed partners. You need to get the service provider on side, you need to get the NGO on side, you need to get the school or the hospital or whoever it is you're working with really committed to it. It's really nice if you can bring in an enterprise partner to help in terms of a funding model or expertise, because a lot of these large Canadian enterprises have deep CSR programs and a deep knowledge of how to work with communities. We're just learning in this country. But overall, we think it's tremendous. We're also very aligned to Cisco's overall corporate CSR message, which is one around transformation, taking what we do best and leveraging it to transform communities. I haven't talked about the education piece of bringing content into the classroom via video, but that is another area that we're focusing in on. We think there's a lot of potential there. We also think that in terms of teacher and mentoring, there is huge opportunity. Jeff and I had teachers say to us, and they're young because they come from wherever it is, central Ontario or central Manitoba. They can't get jobs in their province, so usually at 23 or 24 years of age, with very little training, they are shipped up into these northern communities and they're a bit adrift. And we actually had one teacher say to us, heck, we've got kids in our class who are victims of sexual abuse. We've got kids in our class who are living with parents that are alcoholics. We're not trained to deal with that. So, one of the things I was talking with this bank about this morning was the potential to create a repository of videos or some kind of content that could be used to support some of these teachers dealing with these very unusual and challenging issues. So that's just one, and video could be used to facilitate that, or some kind of site or place where we can house this content that can be easily accessed. There's lots and lots of opportunity. The trick is to keep focused and just get a couple things out there and do them well. Oh, not you, Jim. That's it for me.
Thank you.
That's great.
So one of the things that I'm really, really passionate about being a parent, as many of us are, is our youth in Canada. And really, my kids are a little bit older now, and I've watched them go through and their friends go through and realize there's really a lot of Canadian children, and I think it's probably other countries, other Western civilization countries, that aren't quite as motivated to go into science and technology as, frankly, as we as an employer need, and as a country and Western civilization need. So one of the things we're looking at along the lines of this is how can we really excite and incent? So we stumbled across an organization that's been in Canada for a number of years. It was actually founded by the person that did the Terry Fox project, if you're familiar with that, that organized that, on Calhoun. And this organization, Partners in Research, has been doing, in conjunction with the universities in Canada, has been doing programs where they would bring what they call virtual researchers on call. So they tied together with public schools in grade 5 to grade 12, and any teacher that wanted to get access to a scientist, to an astronaut, to an engineer, could go to this program and say, we would like to have somebody come into the classroom. The challenge is to will speaks. We have a very large country, and not all the schools are in major cities. So the ability in a Northern Ontario school to get a scientist to come into the classroom is very difficult. This organization, in the first instance, created a program called Reaching Every Student. And we've been happy to provide a lot of the technology to them that allows them to coordinate with organizations like the Canadian Space Agency, bring astronauts into class via video. And the key is kids do a lot of watching TV, right? It can't be one way. It has to be an exchange to get kids really excited. So what they started with was this program where essentially for a half hour, teacher requests, and within kind of 24 hours, they have a scientist, perhaps from one of the Canadian universities, an astronaut, and the kids engage. And it's amazing because I think we can all think back to school. There was probably one person at some point that motivated us to take our career path or make a choice in life. And it's creating these little moments that of inspiration is the way this thing works. This thing's evolved to where it started in Ontario. It's going nationally across Canada. It's joining partnerships with colleges like Sheridan College, the University of Lethbridge. They're helping provide data center technology and storage. We're taking all the content of all these sessions and putting them on a portal. So kind of like YouTube, but a portal with a product called Show and Share that we built that does more than just the video. It does transcripts. It allows them to search, better search. So teacher, when they want to search content, they don't just search by title. It provides the ability to put things like PowerPoint slides, animated graphics, what you see in a microscope together with the video and capture all that. So that's something that we're launching going into this upcoming school year that will start in September. We're taking this national. We want to take this to the far north. We also have a program with them that we're working with that allows a teacher while in the class. Imagine a teacher in a remote community who gets a student that asks a really tough question, maybe a question around stem cell research. And wouldn't it be neat if the teacher could go onto the computer and see an instant message, kind of like a buddy list, for a category, and say, is there anybody online that could instantly help answer a student's question? And so instead of being one student on their own, often in a place, in an area where they were not trained, so you often had some people that went through physical education that are science teachers all of a sudden, or went through geography or math teachers, having a network there, the same way we in corporate have. And kind of neat from that perspective. So we're really excited. We really see these partnerships. No one organization can do it. We can provide some technology and some inspiration. We need the content, so the universities have been fantastic in Canada. Leveraging outside Canada, other organizations as well, and doing a lot of sharing in other countries. We really see down the road a vision of the ability to do virtual museum tours, using video technology or video surveillance technology to be able to walk in any room, look into any microscope, and have the student not just see somebody talking, but actually see artifacts regardless of where they are. So really, you mentioned the word transformational. How do we inspire and really change the education experience for students? And taking it step by step, but just literally a ton of people putting their hands up and saying, how can we help with this, which is absolutely fantastic.
Well, when I started off speaking to you all the other day, I talked about innovation. And one of the things that we really want to be focused on, and have been focused on in Cisco Canada, is around innovation. And if you think about innovation, I laid out for you what the challenges for Canada are around innovation and how it's going to impact the public hearing. Is that better?
Yeah.
There you go. I laid out for you the problems that Canada has around innovation and productivity. So one of the things that we'd like to do, obviously we're an innovation-based company, and you've seen what we've been doing around innovation on smart communities here in the last few days. One of the things that we'd like to do, which I think is a win-win both for Cisco and for the country, is to impact Indigenous innovation here. So how do we not just innovate for the benefit of Cisco, but how do we partner with various aspects of Canadian society to actually impact the innovation equation for all of Canada? So how might you do that? Well, first, I think if you're going to talk at these levels, you have to put your money where your mouth is. So we are very focused on increasing our R&D footprint and driving innovation here. The second thing is around working with universities to create research chairs, innovation centers, and you'll see us continue to do that in areas that are important, like education, like healthcare, but also areas that are important for us to create these win-win dynamics. The other thing is around, there's a lot of incubators in Canada. You know, you've got the Ryerson DMZ, you've got Communitech, there's people across the country that are helping Canadians incubate new companies. And part of the challenges around venture capitalists, I won't talk about that right now, but I think there's an opportunity for a company like Cisco to really impact these people by, one, providing them with the right environments, so the right infrastructure so they can do it, the right collaboration tools, but possibly even acting like a PhD professor and helping them pick the right topics to innovate around, because it'll have better commercial success. Because the issue around Canada is also the commercialization of the innovations that we build. So I think those are some great opportunities that we can do. We'll do that with all levels of government. And I think the timing for this is just right, because I think Canada has finally understood its innovation and productivity. The governments have all realized, federal governments realized, they're rethinking the R&D tax credits, how they currently spend. I mean, our government spent billions and billions of dollars on research and development, yet every year the R&D in Canada goes down. So we've got to change that equation. Obviously, governments are trying to put the money out. In fact, I'm sitting on the province's Jobs and Prosperity Council, and Ontario alone pumps out $2 billion to commercial entities to help drive R&D and innovation. And again, it's not getting the payback it needs. So the good news is, they say knowing your problem is halfway to recovery. So I think the governments really understand the problem, and I think it's an area that we can really help. And while we're doing, it may sound like we're doing great stuff, we have our own personal interests in mind. We think that if we can help impact that innovation equation in Canada, one, it's going to help our brand. Two, we're going to be able to gain the trust of a whole host of others to help drive our business. The last piece around innovation, as you saw in one industry with real estate, smart tech communities, we also believe that industries that are important to Canada, we want to focus in on and really help transform them. There are many industries in Canada that have been around for a very long time. Oil and gas, mining, transportation. These industries, if you look at them, have run the same way for a very long time. Utilities and smart grid, the way the electricity grid has been done in a very long time. But we have technologies and techniques that we feel that if we work with these leaders correctly, that we can actually impact these industries, increase our business, and help Canada at the same time. So that's the whole innovation equation is something I'm very passionate about.
Any questions in the audience?
Vincent, the Sufis have a saying, why do you seek new knowledge when you don't apply what you already know? And so we're spending all this on R&D in Ontario, and yet the problems we've been talking about for 3 days, existing technology will solve them. There's billions of CapEx spending that's not taking advantage of this, with savings on CapEx and OpEx. So do we really need, and Cisco, you're going to continue to innovate because you're a tech company. But do we not need social innovation more than technical innovation?
Well, the social innovation is also behavioral change. I think you're getting to the same point, right? And if you look at these monies that are being pumped out by governments, they're not misguided. They're harsher than the right ones. They're trying to drive the right things. But if you look at it, you have various different departments working, I don't want to say cross purposes, but they're looking at different things. And really what happens is, let me give you the example of the shred bags. You probably familiar with. If I had a nickel every time someone called me and said, I can help you get more out of it, you just got to pay me 30, 40, or 50%. Hey, well, I mean, no wonder it's not going to R&D. There's consultants, others, basically convincing even small businesses say, I can give you some shred bags. So what happens is the programs have their hearts in the right place, the execution, the behavior is not very good. Even in Ontario, there are the $2 billion I talked about. They're not just grants and loans, but they're also specific programs with different ministries. And sometimes you got people double dipping. So the whole idea around is you're right, the social and behavioral change. One of the things we're going to look at is how do you streamline this? How do you make it more accessible? How do you make sure it gets to the right people as opposed to people trying to profit out of the government program? So you're bang on. I think that, first of all, we already know that the technology is very efficient. It's always processed. And I think this is where the government's role plays. Even the Jenkins report identified some of these issues, and to the extent that they act on some of these things, we'll have to wait and see. But the good news is that I think we're at a very good start. I personally really do. If you would ask me 2 years ago, when we first started on the innovation agenda, it was a bit confusing on how we might execute. But now we're seeing the right level of the government do the right things. You look at some of the incubators, every one of them is extremely keen to work with us and others to help move that forward. And if you look at the amount of innovation, I don't know if any of you have visited some of these incubation centers, but the ideas and the activities that are going on with these young people that they're trying to do is absolutely amazing. The challenge is they just don't know where to go and how to commercialize and how to take that to market. This is some of the challenges that we all have to figure out.
Any other questions? Claire, Jeff, or Michelle?
I'm just curious. Thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us today. I do have questions about the Aboriginal community, lots actually, but just to build on what you were just saying.
Just to build, thank you for taking the time to talk to us today.
Sure,
And I have lots of questions from the Aboriginal side, but just to build on what you were just saying, what's different? I mean, I've been in this industry a long time. I've heard innovation so much, I feel like it should be a drinking game. I don't want to play it, but
Sure.
is there anything that stands out for you from your viewpoint, your lens, that says this is what's going to be different?
Yeah, well, I think that if you look at innovation, productivity, these are things that we have studied to death and hand, to your point. There are more white papers that you want to know about. There are more commissions, there's all sorts of stuff that's occurred. And I know that every time Cisco was reached out to, when I was reached out to, I said, if it's a white paper, I'm not interested. If it's a study, we're not interested. But if you actually want to do something, we're interested. And I think we've had this mantra for a while. And I think what I find different is when Prime Minister Harper stands up in Davos and says, this is a key priority, and he goes off and forms a commission. And now they made some changes in shredded rules. So what you're seeing is actually you're seeing some action against it, right? The other thing is, even though Ontario's in trouble in terms of our budgetary constraints, you have the Premier creating the Jobs and Prosperity Council, of pretty high-powered people that have been given a mandate to make some very serious recommendations back to the agencies. So what I'm seeing for the first time in a very long time is action, as opposed to white papers. And whether it's going to lead to where we want to get to or not remains to be seen, but I think that's the inflection point, is the question you were asking.
That's great. But on the Aboriginal angle, I think it's about time that we really look at that. So thank you for taking this initiative and doing that. I'm proud that you're doing that, if I could say that. And I'm curious, the country
hates Toronto. So from that, but I don't hate Toronto, but if the country hates Toronto,
It was tongue-in-cheek, of course.
tongue-in-cheek, of course. Well, I'm from Montreal, so I do understand a
you're-
little bit of it.
Well, that's
but
because they still have a sign in downtown Montreal that says Toronto this way.
it's true, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's
they're
true.
still trying to get people.
Yeah. But if you go down to Maine, the signs are actually in French and English, so that's kind of interesting. So doctors from CAMH helping all the mental illness and the depression and all of the addiction problems up in the north, how will that be received? Do you have any idea? I mean, I
Well-
think they'd be grateful, but
Yeah,
there's
no,
still that.
that's a fantastic question because we've been at this now on the planning side for about 2 years. And one of the things that we learned very, very quickly is you cannot be prescriptive when it comes to solutions for First Nations, Métis, and Inuit communities. There is a saying, nothing about us without us. And, we fully subscribe to that. And we very, very early on reached out to ITK, Inuit Tapiriit Kunatami. And that is the leading organization of the Inuit peoples of Canada. Their leader at the time is Mary Simon. Mary has just stepped down. But, we work pretty much in lockstep in terms of our planning, and we learned a lot from ITK in terms of our approach. The hospital, in this particular case for this project, Sioux Lookout, they approached us first. They are a very well-respected organization and community partner for a lot of the bands. And, the value in it for us is that we could align easily and quickly with an organization that already had significant credibility in those northern communities. Because if we were to try to go out there and just say, hi, we're Cisco, bet you've been dying to see us, I'm not so sure of what the response would be, and I'm guessing not good. But if we go in with an established player and we can help them build on things that they do well, all the better. The other sort of modus operandi or operating principle we've had is find the pockets of excellence and scale them. Our technology is all about scaling. So what's working and what can we do better? CAMH was a logical partner because they are national in their scope. Even though they're based in Toronto, they run national programming. And I guess the simple answer to that is they were very, very keen to pilot this. They do feel it is their national obligation to be doing way more, and I think I can say that on their behalf. I don't think they would be too upset, but they're very, very committed to this space as well. And so they've got the capacity, and they've got the knowledge, and they've got the ability to assess effectively, working with partners at the hospital. So these relationships are already in place, and we want to absolutely maximize our chances for success. And we thought that this particular project had all the ingredients. But you make a really good point, and we are not. That's why it's so important to us to build our ecosystem before we make a move, because we need the right partners at the table.
One of the other things that kind of hit home on some of our visits and some of our discussions is that it's really incremental steps. The video technology, if you look at not only how do we introduce help from a place like CAMH, but how do we provide that post-recovery, and if they're in rehab, how do we link families together? So if we go to rehab and are away from the family, how do we connect them? And when we were up in Nunavut a few weeks ago, one thing that hit home was there are times where you're going to have to medevac a patient out of the community. We're talking a third of Canada in terms of geography and 30,000 people. Separating families is pretty traumatic. It means that often when those families do need to be separated, that they don't necessarily make the right decision around their own health care. So we're looking at these incremental ways of how can we use video for direct treatment, for support as well, but beyond the actual treatment in terms of linking families and continuing to keep that going. So.
Well, thanks to the three of you for sharing your passions with us, and I'm sensing the agenda for next year's event sort of percolate,
great.
so.
I want to thank everybody here. I mean, this is it's 2.5 weeks. We put it through a pretty good pace.
Yeah.
Thank you all for your attention. We really appreciate
Hope you
it.
enjoyed Toronto.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys. And thanks to everyone. So, this brings our proceedings to a close. So, on behalf of Mark, Pilar, Andrea, myself, and especially Rick Hybricks, thanks to everybody for your attention and for making the trip to Toronto and spending so much time with us. I really appreciate it. Please keep in touch. We'll keep in touch with you, and we'll hope to do this all again.
I want to thank you.